Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today we discuss John Calipari is leaving Kentucky to be the next head coach at Arkansas. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how this happened, why this happened, then we're going to give the Calipari side, the Kentucky side, and the Arkansas side. So first, how did this happen? And how this happened was Tyson Chicken. So apparently Tyson, the family that owns Tyson Chicken or has big stakes in Tyson Chicken, are huge Arkansas NIL and boosters. And also, more importantly, for this hiring, they are also close family friends with John Calipari and have been friends with Calipari for years. And basically, kind of like this opening comes up with Arkansas when Musselman goes to Arkansas, or excuse me, goes to USC, that hey, the job's opening, and you kind of have to believe that something behind closed doors, they're friends, that this guy basically said, hey, you come to Arkansas, you're going to get all the money that you have in Kentucky, and we're going to give you as much power as you want here at Arkansas. And that was enough for Coach Cal to say, hey, I'm leaving Kentucky and I'll go to Arkansas. And what is a very shocking move, because we kind of thought, hey, that one, there was talk about Coach Cal potentially leaving, not on his own accord from Kentucky, but would he potentially get fired after the another disappointing NCAA tournament, and the fact that Kentucky hasn't made it out of the first round, or excuse me, out of the after to the Sweet 16 or higher since 2019. And a 5-6 year drought like that at Kentucky is unacceptable. They do not like it. So there was talk after Kentucky loses to Oakland in the NCAA tournament that, like, hey, does Kentucky want to pay this $33 million buyout? Do they want to pay this $33 million buyout to get rid of John Calipari? They have a meeting with Coach Cal basically about the future of Kentucky. Coach Cal says he is all committed. The indications was that he was, he's kind of, schmoozing up Kentucky the last few weeks since that loss, trying to, bring back some good faith with the fans, because the fan base was kind of torn on Coach Cal. Some of them were, all of them, I don't think were like 100% approval rating for Coach Cal, but there was a section of the fan base that was completely out on him, that was upset of his lack of tournament success. And there's also another fan base that was like, part of the fan base that was like, hey, we want him to do better, but he's our guy. This is Coach Cal is the second longest tenured coach at Kentucky ever. The only coach that has ever coached at Kentucky longer than him is Adolph Rupp. He's the most recognizable Kentucky face of the 21st century, other than his NBA players. So the idea that like they did have Tubby Smith that was there once upon a time, Rick Pitino that was there once upon a time, but none of them, had the longevity that Coach Cal had. So this was a kind of a shocking move. So why did this happen? Because again, like we said, there isn't necessarily a financial difference or financial gain. Matt Norlander was tweeting last night that his biggest points of emphasis, if he were to take the Arkansas job, were assurance of accepting transfers, ability to bring in his freshman class from Kentucky, and major NIL promises. Again, you could get all that stuff in Kentucky. So why would he leave? Why would he leave? Matt Norlander also pointed out that basically people were kind of talking. Sources basically were saying that, hey, he was kind of looking to leave since like February. And when that Ohio State job came open when they fired Chris Holtmann, Cal was a little intrigued by that. But the timing wasn't right. They ended up hiring the interim coach there at Ohio State. And when this Arkansas opportunity came up, he had to connect with a booster there, basically jumped at it. So again, why did this happen? I have a few theories. I don't know if I believe any of them. More than likely, it's maybe a slight combination of all of them. I'll do the one that maybe the Kentucky fans would want to believe the most here. So that theory is Coach Cal was afraid of the smoke, because after the season met with the powers that be at Kentucky, and kind of the belief was that, like, they kind of said, hey, what's going on here? Kind of like if you're in a long-term relationship and somebody comes in, it's like, hey, what are we doing here? Going to put a ring on that finger? The Kentucky boosters were basically, hey, man, what are you doing here, Cal? Cool. You're getting lottery picks. Can we make the Sweet 16? Can we go back to the Final Four? We haven't won a national championship in 12 years. What the heck's going on here? We're Kentucky. We win natties. So basically kind of the idea that a lot of people were having was that next year might be a do or die year for Coach Cal. And if it's a disappointing, end of the season like it was this year against Oakland or a few years ago against St. Peter's, that the Kentucky people might just pay that buyout. And maybe there's a thing too where Coach Cal is basically jumping off the ship before it sinks. And he didn't want to stay at Kentucky and, try and stick it out. I don't know if I necessarily believe in that theory because I do think, and this isn't specific to Coach Cal, but if you're someone that, competes on the highest of levels, professionally on a sports, I think you have a huge, tremendous belief in yourself and a tremendous self-confidence that sometimes rivals arrogance. And I think Coach Cal definitely has a lot of confidence in himself. And I think he believes if he were to stay at Kentucky another year that he could have another deep tournament run, despite what's happened the last few years. So I don't necessarily believe that. Another thing too, that's another theory is, was he tired of the fan pressure? Because like I said earlier, fans weren't necessarily the most happy with Coach Cal. They were kind of on the outs on him. And this isn't a thing that's been kind of been brewing and bubbling over the last 2 or 3 years, where it was like Coach Cal is very proud of the fact that he's sent a lot of guys to the NBA. And what is it? The thing about like having like $1 billion of contracts of guys that he had under his control at Kentucky. And it's almost like it turned into a negative thing about Coach Cal because it's like, yeah, that's really cool, but we want to win national championships here at Kentucky. And the fact that you had like all of this talent, all of these all-stars, and you're not winning national championships more regularly, it almost came as more of like a downside of Coach Cal that he wasn't able to win with this top tier talent. So maybe that's part of it. There was a weird thing that happened today. I'm recording this Monday, where he was like walking in the streets of Lexington, a very busy Lexington street. And basically, like a news person came up and was like, "Hey, do you have any comments?" And he's like, "Hey, please leave me alone. I'm walking my dog. I'd like some privacy." And it's like, dude, you're walking on an incredibly busy street. And you also had like a little toy dog. That toy dog doesn't need like 5 miles of walking a day or that much walking a day. You're also probably one of the 5 richest people in the state. I'm sure you have a mansion. I'm sure you have a backyard. If the dog needs some exercise, it can go out there. So you can have your privacy. So the fact that you were out walking on the street, you kind of wanted some attention. And I think it was almost the thing too, where he wanted to slightly play the victim a little bit, where it's like, look at how the media is attacking me. How dare they disrespect me, Coach Cal? Another part of it too is maybe was Coach Cal offended the fact that people were even questioning that they would maybe want to move on from him, where he's like, hey man, I always get you guys top tier talent. Everyone has a few upsets in the tournament here or there. Look at all the times that I went on runs when people weren't expecting us to. Remember the Karl Anthony Towns run. Remember the Julius Randle run. Remember the Anthony Davis run. Again, in the argument Kentucky, hey, that was a while ago. All those guys are in their late 20s now. Some of them are in their 30s. And here's actually the theory. Okay, I have another theory that I don't think is true. Another theory. Maybe he was mad at the athletic director. Maybe there's some friction there. Again, I don't know much about Kentucky athletics, but I was thinking like, well, wait a second. Maybe there was a new athletic director that was there like a few years ago or something. And it's like, nope, Kentucky's had the same athletic director for a few decades now. So it's nothing like that, these guys have been working together for 15 plus years. So I don't believe in that. Here's where, again, allow me to put my tinfoil hat on here for a second. And again, I'm not sure if I 100% believe this, and there's no way to know. But maybe it was Cal was fed up with the Kentucky boosters. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Friday Night Lights, the TV show. And I can't remember if it's Buddy Garrity or somebody else. I know Buddy did this at least once in that show. But basically, some boosters that have power, money, influence, because money equals influence in this country. They will basically have the opinion of like, hey, I have this influence. I'm going to use it. And I'm going to try and control who is on the team and who starts on the team. And it was kind of like, hey, I'm a booster. I have money. I want to make these decisions. And, you're going to listen to me, Coach Taylor. Maybe there was something like that going on in Kentucky. I'm going to point this out here, guys. So for people that aren't necessarily the most familiar with the Kentucky basketball team this year. So they had 4 very high level guards that they recruited that were true freshmen this year. They had DJ Wagner, Justin Edwards, who started, Wagner started 28 games, and Justin Edwards started 30 games. The reason I bring this up is because if you were going to ask NBA people, if you were going to ask, maybe even you ask Kentucky fans, those guys better than the two freshmen coming off the bench, who DJ Wagner and Justin Edwards too, both starters. Wagner averaged 9.9 points per game. Edwards averaged 8.8 points per game. Off the bench, again, both true freshmen. Rob Dillingham averaged 15 points per game coming off the bench. And then Reed Sheppard averaged 12 points per game. Rob Dillingham only had 1 start this season. Sheppard had 5 starts this season. So why is that? That two freshmen that basically are less productive, they had worse shooting splits, they put up less stats. All of them played relatively around the same minutes per game. Why are those guys starting over the guys that might get drafted them higher than them in the NBA draft and are just more productive and shoot better? Why is that? Is it because, and again, now I heard the reason I even thought to look this up is because I think it was Tate Frazier on his podcast within like the last, a few weeks ago when Kentucky got bounced. They're talking about why are these guys coming off the bench, or might even before Kentucky got bounced. And it was like, Cal does these things where he promises guys when he's recruiting them, he promised them starting spots. And that's maybe why Devin Booker didn't start ever when he was at Kentucky. And the question I have, that can be completely true. I have no idea. Is it Coach Cal or is it potentially a booster? That is like, because if you look at the high school recruiting rankings, DJ Wagner, Justin Edwards, the guys that were starting were, again, they're all really highly ranked, but Wagner and Edwards were considered to be, like those guys were like top 5 guys in the class. And Dillingham, Sheppard were more of like in the teens. And I think Sheppard might have even been in the 30s of what I saw. Again, every site's different, but those are just the ones that I saw with my little bit of research I did on this. So again, is it maybe some sort of a booster? Again, maybe it's a combination of all 3 of these things, but it is still kind of peculiar of why Coach Cal would leave Kentucky to go to Arkansas. So I just kind of wanted to throw those theories out there. Not necessarily sure which one I believe, probably a combination of all of them, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to throw those out here. So, okay, let's talk about the Arkansas side here, and then we'll get to the Kentucky side as I kind of wrap up this video here. So the Arkansas side of this, awesome hire. Arkansas has had they've had a better basketball history than you would maybe think. Nolan Richardson is kind of the premier guy with that program. I know Eddie Sutton was there for a while too. Nolan Richardson won a national championship in 1994, had a bunch of awesome tournament runs with Arkansas. But since he left, it's been a lot of and Eric Musselman, they had not made it to the Sweet 16 for a good 20-year stretch. And then Musselman the last few years made 2 Elite 8 runs and made a Sweet 16 run. And then this past year, I think they were like 16, 17. We're not a good team. So they do have some history. They have been able to, and Musselman was able to get these guys to their program. They did have some very talented guys, guys that got drafted like Moses Moody a few years ago. Even, if you're looking more than a decade ago, you had Bobby Portis, who I believe was a 5-star kid that played at Arkansas. So Arkansas is still able to get talent, and you have the number 1 guy in the country. If you're picking, hey, who is the best at getting talent? If you're just talking about a singular coach, take John Shire away from Duke. Is he recruiting awesome at Minnesota? Take Bill Self away from Kansas or whoever you want to pick. I think maybe you could throw Mark Few or something in there. But Coach Cal is the guy that gets the big recruits. And you can get those big recruits to Arkansas. And again, you're going to be able to get transfers. And basically, you can kind of have your own version of Kentucky. Now, maybe you don't want the tournament success Kentucky has had recently, but you might be having more of that high-end NBA talent like a De'Aaron Fox or a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Karl Anthony Towns or an Anthony Davis. Those guys, more of those guys might be walking into your program than they were previously. So that's kind of an optimistic thing for you to look at here. And, maybe this will be a crash and burn thing with Coach Cal here. But again, he's been pretty successful everywhere he's went, and he definitely knows how to get talent. So there's a lot of upsides for Arkansas here. So, but Kentucky, let's talk about them here for a second. Is a, Kentucky hasn't been looking for a head coach in 15 years. If you look back 15 years ago, the entire sport, college sports, were different. One and done was just starting to become a thing, mostly pioneered by John Calipari. You didn't have NIL. You didn't have the ability to, I mean, you had somewhat of an ability to do this, but you don't have it like you do now, where you basically have like, you can basically call up Kentucky right now when they are recruiting their next head coach. They can call up anyone in the country or anyone that might have recently retired, like Jay Wright or something like that. And you call them up and you just say, or someone maybe in the NBA, like a Billy Donovan, Brad Stevens, you call them up and be like, all right, man, you want to be the head coach of Kentucky? Blank check. What do you want? What's the number? Name a number. Name a number. 13 million. Cool. You have that ability now if you're Kentucky. And the good news if you're Kentucky is, you don't have to pay the $33 million for the John Calipari buyout. You don't have to deal with another year of Coach Cal potentially having a playoff disappointment and the fallout from what that could be. And you get to get your guy. Because I'm telling you guys, they're going to make a big splash with this hire. They are going to make a big splash with this hire. They're going to steal somebody from another program. Now, I have no idea who that would be. People have been throwing out Nate Oates there, but then the Alabama people say, hey, Nate Oates wants to build his own thing in Alabama. Don't know how much I believe that, but that's what the Alabama people say. Scott Drew at Baylor, again, would he leave? He's been there forever. Most of the time, guys, when these guys have been there for a decade plus, it's kind of hard to get them to leave. And the reason they don't leave is because they like being there and they don't want to leave, and that's okay. Mark Few at Gonzaga, that's another name I've heard. I have no idea who they will get, but it is going to be some sort of a big name. I'd be shocked if they kind of went like a G5 coach or something like that. I'd be very shocked if they did something like that. So, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what you think about Coach Cal leaving, why he left, things like that. Who should they hire next? Was this a good move for Arkansas? Kind of let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you made it this far in the video, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously in the algorithm. We've been doing this show for a while now. We post videos pretty regularly, so feel free to explore the Sports Detective podcast channel here on your YouTube page, and maybe you'll find some other videos that you like. Again, hit like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.